Hello, welcome back to the ministry. I'm continuing from where I left off. We were talking about Rebecca and Laban. And as I was sitting there thinking to myself, think about this like this. Rebecca was standing right there because remember the night that Jacob was having dinner with the family, Laban was there and he was talking about, remember, he was asking him, oh, what do you want? What do you want? What would be a reward to you if you worked for me? Because I don't want you to just work for me for free. And he said, well, I do like Rachel. You think Rebecca wasn't standing there listening? Now remember, now a lot of you may say, but no, Rebecca. Wasn't it Rebecca that had Jacob go in there and steal Esau's blessing in the first place? Think about it. I mean, really just sit there and think about it. Wasn't it Rebecca that sent him in there to go steal Esau's blessing? Half the stuff that happened with Esau and Jacob could have been avoided if what? Oh, Rebecca. The very same Rebecca that the assistant asked for clarity as to who the wife of Isaac should be. That Rebecca. That y'all all claim, oh my God, she was at the water well. She knew. She went off. Wasn't Laban standing right there when the assistant wanted to take her and she said, no, I will go? Laban was standing right there. That Rebecca. Some of us draw a blank spot on the fact that Rebecca was the one that sent. Jacob did not do that on his own fruition. Who sent him? Rebecca. So if Rebecca is conniving enough to steal her other son's birthright by telling Jacob exactly what to do, she told him exactly what to do. She made the meal. You think she wasn't standing right there when he said he was in love with Rachel? When he professed he wanted Rachel. And remember, she was the one that told Isaac, I don't want him out there getting hooked up with a Hittite woman, because she knew if he got hooked up with a Hittite woman, that a Hittite woman would probably be more domineering and dominant to him than what? He would have recognized that woman and got all caught up. She was like, oh, no. Because she probably knows that a Hittite woman is more like herself than she portrayed. Meaning, not so much that Rebecca was a hoe, because I believe that's what the whole point of the Hittite thing was. But that Rebecca knew that the Hittite woman could see through her. Because they were more, let's say, character-wise, more, not character-wise, but personality trait-wise, alike. She couldn't control nobody like that. But, Jacob gets hooked up with a Leah. That Laban, Rachel's very own brother, who she could talk to. And as we know, Leah was quiet. Leah would do whatever was told of her, right? Leah was innocent in this situation. But I'm willing to bet even Rebecca went to Leah and came to her and told her what the plan was going to be. How did Leah end up in the bed that night? Anybody ever ask that? Anybody ever wonder? I'm letting that sit with y'all for a moment. Because we hear about Leah ending up in the bed, but we never figured out how she got there. Laban, Rebecca's what? Brother. So you think that she didn't go talk? You think that she didn't have a Sarah moment for a minute there? We know what Sarah did. Sarah told Abraham exactly what to do in order for the Ishmael to be born. So did Rebecca do the same? Why am I saying this? Some of you goddamn spouses had toxic mamas. Getting back to the point. That they used their love as a form of abuse due to the fact that they could, one, either abuse them into submission, or two, once they got them to a level of submission, that once they were old enough, because think about it. Let's talk about, we're not talking about abuse here, but we're talking about, you know that when the Bible says, train up a child that they will know how to go. Sometimes when a parent, I don't want to say beats a child, but there's a level of discipline that a parent will give a child that, okay, I will discipline you every time I do this. It's like a hit dog hollers. Every time you don't need to keep hitting the person. You don't need to keep hitting the dog so many times. By a certain point, it's in their muscle memory that you don't need to hit them no more. So I'm sure that when you have a toxic mama like that, when the boy got to a point that they were old enough, they didn't have to worry about the boy turning on them and hitting them back, because they've already instilled in them in an abusive manner that they gonna jump if they even approach to do something. So now all they have to do is what? Calmly speak to them in the same manner in which they did in order to calm them after a beating, after they abused them. And then they tell them, this is what I want you to do. So they don't need to get hit. They just need to show a false sense of love at this point. So the child now feels like, oh, I'm getting the love I finally wanted from my mom. But it's almost like it's a certain level. If I hear their voice raised to this level, I need to draw back because they might. It's instilled in them. It's a trigger. God done brought me here. Was I talking? No, I wasn't going to come here. It's something I keep seeing on television. And I'm going to be like, what is this coming from? God's bringing me here. I'm like, okay. This wasn't a thought of mine. So they dealt with toxicity. And then were reared, coddled, groomed to a point that you don't need to hit a dog or put a collar around the dog's neck. If you take a dog and put it in an invisible fence, but every time that invisible fence, they touch it, it electrocutes them. It touch it, it shocks them. Sooner or later, they're going to realize if I get to this point in the yard, I'm going to get shocked. So I'm no longer going to try to get out of this point in the yard. Steve Harvey said something on Family Feud one day I was looking at it. He said, if you take I think it's a lightning bug, and put it in a jar, naturally it's going to want to try to get out. So it's going to keep trying to hit its head up against the lid because it knows that it can get... No. It was a grasshopper. It can jump up to 6 feet high. Right? But a mason jar is only 6 inches tall. So if it keeps trying to jump to get to that height, sooner or later it's going to realize my head keeps hitting this. So once it keeps hitting this, it's going to do what? Eventually it's going to stop. But then let's say grasshopper had babies in there. The grasshopper babies see it, stop trying to get past the mason jar lid. So it trained them not to jump any higher. Some of your spouses had toxic parents, female authority, that trained them, groomed them into being, I can control you now because you're too big for me to beat you anymore. But I put enough beatings in you, remember the shot collar, as a child, that at a certain age, they weren't going to do anything anyway. All they have to do now is just rear them in love. If I want you to do something, let me manipulate you this way. Rebecca did what? She told Esau what? She told Jacob what? Just go. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. I'll get the lamb. You just going to feed it to him. But dress up like your brother. But my brother's hairy. That's all right. We're going to put a little woolly patch on you. That's all right. I'll cook the dinner. Don't worry about it. So if you think that she was conniving enough to do that, you think that she didn't have nothing to do with the fact that Rachel didn't get to be with Isaac for 14 years? And if I'm not mistaken, Rebecca was dead by then. Do you think that Rebecca didn't have nothing to do with the fact that Laban had betrothed the servant to marry Rachel contractually? You think she had nothing? This was all Laban. Laban thought of this. It was all Laban's idea. I want you to think about that for a moment. She's the one that told Isaac, I don't want him to go out there and fall out in love with none of them Hittite women. And you would just probably be like, well, that's good because she probably hoe. Sorry. So sorry. But is it that or that the fact that she would have lost control? Let me tell you something. You sit up there and say, I don't want them to fall in love with this person. The thing that you tell a person not to do, they usually 9 times out of 10 end up doing it. Some of your spouses probably went and got away from their toxic feminine figure in their lives and ended up falling right into the bed of a toxic female that put it on them some kind of thick. You ever hear? I remember I was listening to Tamar Braxton when she was on The Real one time, and she made this statement. She said, I don't never want the sex to be this good because then I'm going to be so out my head, I can't do nothing. But pull it back and remember witchcraft. Remember, we talked in the past about the fact that witchcraft, a woman can use their bodily fluids to create a covenant with a person. And I'm talking about blood, feminine fluids, and I never thought about this until Elisa Marie said it, but even breast milk. Because now the man has created a sexual covenant with them. This woman can abuse him however she wants to. And if she introduced the abuse in sex, So when certain hitting acquires outside of it, and they got that same toxicity. Because when Elisa Marie mentioned this in her video, she said she saw a woman that could either be a woman or a mother figure. Let me tell you something about it's an attachment style. That you will always see a person that has weaker attachments, meaning they are weak, they're kind, they're this. This happens to women or men. They usually fall for the aggressive, the independent, the this person, because they're aggressive and independent. And remember, now we got this toxic femininity out here where it's dominating everything, which is just a Jezebelic spirit. They go for a man that they can what? Manipulate. Sound a lot like Rebecca manipulating Jacob, right? So if a man grew up with a toxic feminine mother and then meets up with a toxic feminine partner or female, do you think that they're going to automatically ever be able to see the nice, sweet, kind person that isn't going to touch them or hit them because they're chaste and they're loving and they're lovely as somebody they want? The woman that is going to appreciate them and never lay a hand on them as somebody that they want, when they've been getting turned upside down, sideways, and hogtied by a female that did everything that they sexually desired in toxic femininity. But what are you talking about? Jezebel? Let's talk about Jezebel and Ahab. Okay? Come on. Okay, Jezebel and Ahab. Now, this is 1 Kings 21. Now, Naboth and the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezebel, beside the place of Ahab, the king of Samaria. And after Ahab and Nezbor, give me your vineyard, I may have it for vegetable gardens because it is near my house. And I will give you a better vineyard for it. Or if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money. But Naboth said to Ahab, the Lord forbid. Wait. Pages stuck together. Come on now. That I should give you inheritance of my fathers. And Ahab went into his house vexed, sullen, because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he said, I will not give you the inheritance of my father. And he lay down in the bed and turned away his face and would eat no food. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and told him, why is your spirit so vexed that you eat no food? And he said to her, because I spoke to Naboth and the Jezreelite and said to him, give me your vineyard for money, or else if it please you, I will give you other vineyards for it. And he answered, I will not give you my vineyard. And Jezebel, his wife, said to him, Do you now govern Israel? Arise and eat bread. Let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote a letter in Ahab's name and selected them with his seal. And she sent the letters to the elders of the nobles and dwelt with Naboth and his city, and wrote in the letters proclaiming a fast, and set Naboth on a high among the people. So, and set two base fellows up to oppose him, and let him bring the charge against him, saying, "You have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death." And the men of the city and the elders and the nobles who dwelt in the city did as Jezebel said. She had sent word to them and had written the letters which she sent to them, and they proclaimed the fast. And Naboth the high among the people and the two base fellows came in the opposite to oppose him, and the fellows brought charge against Naboth and the presence of the people, saying that Naboth cursed God and the king. So they took him out the city and stoned him to death. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, "Naboth has been stoned to death." And as soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned to death, Jezebel said to Ahab, "Arise and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth, and which refused to give you money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead." And as soon as Abraham heard Naboth was dead, Abraham arose to go down into the vineyard of Naboth of the Jezreelite to possess it. So, what am I saying? Abraham was a weak man. Abraham wasn't being controlled. Not Abraham. Ahab was being controlled by Jezebel. Jezebel had the means, the skills, and the ability to go around Ahab. She used not so much authority, but the fact that she had access to people, the fact that she could use the fasting to get what she wanted. Because if you think these witches ain't out here fasting too, they are. They're fasting and sending monitoring spirits to see what y'all doing. That's what they're doing. Anybody notice a heightening of a spirit of lurking? Because I've noticed it. That's because the enemy is scared right now. But that's beside the point. Because she's still going down. Still. If you didn't see the word is a wrap yet, please go back and watch that. The 2 parts. It's 2 parts called, one's called Don't Take Your Foot Off the Gas. And the second one is called There's a Blessing. No, it's the testing before the blessing or something like that. With the elevators on the front. But all of that is the enemy having a temper tantrum because he's trying to take you out before you can open up your door to your elevation. Some of your God-ordained spouses were being controlled, manipulated, and pinned down by women like this. They used their feminine abilities to gain access and authority to these people. I told you this way back last month sometime in the word that the man's journey, that in the midst of that man's journey, Mm-hmm. He got connected to a woman that used all her feminine wiles to get the cars, the key codes, and all of it to dominate this man. Look at what Jezebel just did to Ahab. Ahab, it's not to say that he was weak, but look at what he did. He was told no, and then he goes and lays down in bed. It's not working. It's not working. Let me go lay down. Some of your God-ordained spouses, not to say that they're weak. They aren't weak men by any means. Let's just say they're type that doesn't like confrontation. Some of them don't even know what to do with a confrontation, probably because of the fact that they dealt with toxic females as a toxic female authority growing up. And because of that, they really don't know how to handle disputes and argument. I've had to deal with people, especially if you grew up in an environment of arguments and people not understanding how to dispute. I was listening to Keys to the Kingdom, and she did a video where the person was talking. She was talking about somebody, a client of hers or somebody that she was just talking to, and the person was saying how they avoid confrontation at all costs. Some of your God-ordained spouses will avoid confrontation. They don't want confrontation. So they will be very submissive in the midst of their confrontation because they don't want to deal with argument. If they sense argument, they're being triggered by that childhood wound. Going back to what I was saying about the Andy Griffith episode, what did the guy say? Oh, my mom used to abuse me all the time. If a person associates hitting with love or hitting, but it doesn't mean that they enjoy being verbally abused. Some people can't stand loud noises. I had a roommate at one point, and the person was not listening to me. And what I did was, when they kept raising their voice, evidently they thought that was going to intimidate me, I clapped my hands to break the energy of the atmosphere. When I did that, when I tell you that person almost ran up on me, let me explain something to you. Some of them can't stand loud noise. Some of them, because they were trained so well by their moms, they don't want to hear your voice elevate to any degree. They're getting triggered. Woman or man, they associate loudness with an impending hit. So they remain quiet. They try to keep the peace. They try to do all this. Ahab didn't want to argue with Naboth. He went back home and cried. Got in bed and cried about it. Jezebel got up and did something about it. Some of us, we don't have a Jezebelic spirit. We have a spirit of determined get-her-doneness. But if you do it out of position, you acting like a Jezebel. If you're doing it out of pride, you're acting like a what? Jezebel. Some of these God-ordained spouses liked having women that had that authority. Oh, we got it. It's just that we don't do it toxically. We're going to ask your opinion. We're going to find out what the issue is. We're going to sit down with you and have a communicative conversation that we're not going to command the scenario and just take care of it. We're going to sit there and get your opinion. Let me tell you something about a relationship I was in once. I was in a relationship with somebody, and I used to never have an opinion. This is long before I knew my identity with Christ. I had no opinion. The person would always ask me, so what do you think about that? It's whatever you want. Some of you got it in spouses were in these toxic relationships because they knew that having this dominant partner, that person was always going to get it done. What's the name? Prophetic Poetry did a video in that same Black Widow video. She said that this person has a level of authority. They gave them control, whether it be financially, whether it be business-wise, whether it be what have you. They gave them control because they knew that person was wise in that area. And they are a get-her-done type person. So they didn't have to look at or worry. And because this particular person, they had a sexual connection to them, and they were making sure everything got handled for them. It's like my business is getting taken care of. I'm getting what I want in the bedroom. I'm good. Remember, men think with their little brains. But still, this person was toxic. Because I guarantee you, after they gave them the keys, the cars, and the security codes, now the person is like, oh. And then that toxicity comes in. Verbal abuse. What you gonna do? I got the keys, the cars, and security codes. Where you going? Huh? Remember that song? I bet you what you gonna do? What she say? I got answers, accusation. What you mean you gonna choke? You may think you're going to do something, but what you think you're going to do? But remember, I love you, right? What's my point? You need to pray for your God-ordained spouse, because some of these people, they've been through the ringer in relationship, and they need your prayer. Because they don't see relationship as you see relationship. And some of you, you've seen it because it happened to you in the opposite manner. You may have had a toxic male figure in your life, and you are submissive to them because it's your father, it's your uncle. Then you got into a relationship with somebody that was a toxic boyfriend. You need to pray for these men.